Listen carefully, because this is not just a message, this is a moment. There is something happening around you right now that you haven't fully named yet, but you felt it. You sensed it in the quiet moments when everything should feel calm, yet something inside you refuses to settle. You've noticed it in the way your thoughts won't slow down, in the way your heart feels restless for no clear reason, in the way peace seems just out of reach, like it's being pulled away the moment you get close to it. And here's the truth that most people will never say out loud. This is not random. This is not just stress. This is not just one of those days. And this is definitely not something you should ignore. Something is trying to steal your peace. Not loudly. Not obviously. Not in a way that would make you immediately react. No, it's subtle. It's strategic. It slips into your mind through small thoughts, tiny doubts, quiet worries that seem harmless at first. But then they grow. They multiply. They start to take up space in your spirit until suddenly you don't feel like yourself anymore. And you've been asking yourself, haven't you? Why do I feel like this? Why can't I just relax? Why does everything feel heavier than it should? You've tried to push through it. You've tried to distract yourself. You've told yourself, it's nothing. I'll be fine. But deep down you know something is off. You know this isn't just about what's happening around you. It's something pressing in on you. This is the moment where most people brush it off. They scroll. They ignore. They numb it with noise. But you didn't. You're here. And that's not an accident. Because the truth is, the very thing trying to disturb your peace didn't expect you to become aware of it. It thrives in silence. It thrives when you don't question it. It thrives when you accept the chaos as normal. But something inside you refused to accept it. Something inside you said, no, this isn't right. And voice, that awareness, that pull you couldn't ignore. That's the beginning of your awakening. Because peace is not just a feeling. It is a position. It is a state of alignment. And when something starts trying to pull you out of that alignment, it's not by accident. It's because your peace is valuable. More valuable than you've been told. Your peace protects your clarity. Your peace guards your decisions. Your peace anchors your identity. And if something can shake your peace, it can shake everything else. That's why the attack is so quiet. Have you noticed how it starts? A single thought, what if something goes wrong? A sudden memory pulling you back into something you already overcame. A random feeling of unease with no clear source. And then slowly, without you realizing it, your energy shifts. You become more reactive, more doubtful, more drained. Not because you're weak, but because something is working overtime to wear you down from the inside out. And here's what makes this even more dangerous: it doesn't come as an enemy. It comes disguised as your own thoughts, your own voice, your own reasoning. It blends in so well that you start believing it's you. But it's not. This is the silent attack no one warns you about, the kind that doesn't break doors down, but slowly erodes your inner world until you forget what peace even felt like. But hear this clearly and let it settle deep within you. You are not losing your peace by accident. You are being pulled away from it on purpose. And the fact that you're noticing it now changes everything. Because awareness is the moment the attack loses its invisibility. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. Something is trying to steal your peace, but it made one mistake. It underestimated your awareness. It underestimated your spirit. And it definitely underestimated this moment. Because now you're awake. And this is where everything begins to shift. Type "I choose peace" in the comments if you feel this message stirring something inside you. Blessing code 717 is now surrounding your spirit. Now that you've become aware, now that something inside you has awakened, you need to understand what is really happening around you. Because this goes deeper than feelings, deeper than circumstances, deeper than what your eyes can see. There is a battle happening around you right now. Not the kind of battle that makes noise. Not the kind that announces itself. This battle is quiet, calculated, and constant. It moves through your environment, through your thoughts, through your emotions, shaping your inner world without ever asking for permission. And the reason it feels so confusing is because it doesn't look like a battle at all. It looks like everyday life. It feels like normal stress. It disguises itself as routine pressure, as overthinking, as mood shifts you can't quite explain. But behind all of that, something is working. Because peace is not just an emotion you randomly feel when things go right. Peace is a state of alignment that connects you to clarity, to strength, to direction. And when that alignment is threatened, everything else begins to feel unstable. That's why the battle is focused there first. If your peace is disturbed, your focus weakens. If your focus weakens, your decisions shift. And once your decisions shift, your entire path can slowly begin to change without you even realizing it. This is why it feels like things have been slightly off lately. Not completely broken, just off enough to make you question yourself. You've had moments where your mind races even when nothing is wrong. Moments where you feel overwhelmed even when things are quiet. Moments where your energy drops for no clear reason. And then you try to explain it logically. You try to make sense of it. But no explanation fully satisfies what you're feeling. That's because this isn't just logical. This is an unseen pressure trying to influence your internal state. And the most important thing you need to understand is this. Not everything that enters your mind belongs to you. Not every thought you think is yours. Not every feeling you carry started with you. Some of it is influence. Some of it is noise. Some of it is interference designed to pull you away from stability and into confusion. And it doesn't come all at once. It builds gradually. It starts with a small distraction, then a second thought, then a lingering worry, then a shift in your mood. And before you realize what's happening, your inner peace has been replaced with tension. Your clarity has been replaced with doubt. Your calm has been replaced with restlessness. And because it happens slowly, you don't immediately resist it. You adapt to it. You begin to function inside the discomfort as if it's normal. You start carrying the weight as if it belongs to you. You start adjusting your life around something that was never meant to stay in the first place. That is how this unseen battle operates. It doesn't force you. It convinces you. It convinces you that the chaos is normal. It convinces you that the stress is unavoidable. It convinces you that the heaviness is just part of life. But it's not. You were not designed to live in constant inner tension. You were not meant to wake up with unexplained heaviness or go to sleep with a restless mind. That state you've been slipping into, that's not your natural state. That's what happens when something external begins to interfere with your internal alignment. And the reason this matters so much right now is because of what you carry within you. There is something about your spirit, your awareness, your ability to perceive things deeply that makes your peace extremely important. When you are calm, you see clearly. When you are centered, you make better decisions. When you are grounded, you move with confidence. And that makes you difficult to disrupt. So the only way to affect your direction is to disturb your peace. This is why the pressure has increased. This is why the thoughts have been louder. This is why the emotions have been heavier. This is why the distractions have been more persistent. Because something recognizes that if you stay grounded, if you stay clear, if you stay aligned, you move forward in a way that cannot be easily stopped. But here is where everything begins to shift. The moment you recognize that this is a battle, you stop participating in it unconsciously. You begin to observe instead of absorb. You begin to question instead of accept. You begin to separate what is yours from what is not. And that awareness changes your position completely. Because now, instead of being pulled by every thought and every feeling, you start to stand still. You start to regain control. You start to protect your peace instead of unknowingly surrendering it. And that is exactly what this unseen force did not want. It wanted you distracted. It wanted you reactive. And wanted you unaware. But now you are none of those things. You are watching. You are noticing. You are waking up. And once you truly see the battle for what it is, it can no longer move through you the same way it did before. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if this truth is resonating within you. Blessing code 828 is now activating clarity around your mind and spirit. There is a reason this battle is centered around your peace, and it's not random. It's not accidental, and it's definitely not small. What you have been feeling is not just an emotional disturbance. It is a targeted disruption aimed at something far more important than you realize. Because your peace is not just about feeling calm, your peace is power. You were never taught to see it that way. You were taught to treat peace like a luxury, like something you experience only when everything around you is perfect. But that is not the truth. Peace is not the result of a perfect environment, it is the foundation that allows you to remain steady even when everything around you is uncertain. And that is exactly why it is being targeted. When your peace is intact, you think clearly. You respond instead of react. You see situations for what they are instead of what fear tries to turn them into. Your decisions come from stability, not pressure. And most importantly, you remain connected to who you truly are instead of becoming a version of yourself shaped by stress and confusion. That is dangerous to anything trying to control your direction. Because when you are at peace, you cannot be easily manipulated. You cannot be easily distracted. You cannot be easily shaken. You become anchored. You become steady. You become aware. And awareness is something that breaks patterns, disrupts cycles, and exposes anything that tries to operate in the shadows. This is why your peace hath been under pressure. Not because you are weak, but because you are becoming stronger. Not because you are losing control, but because you are gaining clarity. Not because life is against you, but because something recognizes that once you fully step into your alignment, you will move differently, think differently, and live differently. Think about it. Every time you are about to reach a moment of clarity, something tries to interrupt it. A distraction appears. A thought pulls you away. A situation suddenly demands your attention. It's never obvious enough to alarm you, but it is always precise enough to shift your focus. That is not coincidence. That is interference. Because clarity comes from peace, and peace creates direction. And once you have direction, you stop wondering. You stop second-guessing. You stop entertaining things that do not align with where you are meant to go. And that is when everything begins to change. This is why your peace is so valuable. It is not just protecting your emotions, it is protecting your future. Every decision you make flows through your state of mind. Every step you take is influenced by what you feel internally. If your inner world is unstable, your outer world will reflect that instability. But when your inner world is grounded, your external actions begin to align with purpose instead of pressure. That is the shift that is trying to be delayed. Because once you stabilize internally, everything else begins to fall into place. You start seeing through confusion. You start recognizing what drains you. You start stepping away from what no longer serves you. And most importantly, you stop settling. And that is where your power truly begins. But here is what you need to hear right now, and you need to hear it clearly. Your peace is not something you wait for. Your peace is something you protect. Because the moment you stop guarding it, something else will try to occupy that space. Doubt will try to step in. Fear will try to take control. Distraction will try to fill the silence. And before you know it, you are no longer operating from clarity, you are operating from reaction. And reaction is where mistakes happen. Reaction is where energy is wasted. Reaction is where direction is lost. That is why this moment matters. Because now you are no longer unaware of what is happening. Now you are no longer passively experiencing this pressure. You are recognizing it. You are naming it. And once you name it, you can begin to separate yourself from it. This is where your power begins to return. Not by fighting everything around you, but by stabilizing everything within you. Because when your peace becomes your priority, everything else begins to lose its ability to control you. And this is the shift that changes everything. You are not here to chase peace. You are here to stand in it no matter what tries to move you out of it. And once you fully understand that, nothing will be able to steal it from you the same way again. Type "My peace is power" in the comments if you are choosing to stand firm in this truth. Blessing code 919 is now sealing your inner stability and clarity. As this truth settles into your spirit, understand this: every time you protect your peace, you become a light for someone else still lost in confusion. And right now, there are souls searching, waiting for a message like this to reach them before the noise of the world consumes them completely. When you choose to support this mission through the PayPal link in the description, or the QR code on your screen, you are not just giving, you are sowing into clarity, into awakening, into the restoration of someone's inner world. The word declares, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." And today that promise is alive, moving through you, calling you into action. This is your moment to step in and say, "I will help carry this light further." Do not hesitate. Do not delay, because every seed you release becomes a ripple of peace in someone else's storm. Step forward now and be part of what heaven is doing. Now that you understand how valuable your peace truly is, you need to see something even more clearly, because the way your peace is being taken from you is not obvious. It is not loud. It is not aggressive. It is subtle, calculated, and deeply disguised within the patterns of your everyday life. That is why it has been working. Because if something came at you directly, you would resist it. If it showed up as something clearly negative, you would reject it. But that is not how this operates. It enters quietly, through things that seem normal, even harmless at first. And before you realize what is happening, your peace has already been compromised. It often begins with your thoughts. Not dramatic thoughts, not extreme fears, just small, repetitive ideas that slowly start to occupy your mind. A question that doesn't need answering. A scenario that hasn't even happened. A doubt that seems reasonable in the moment. And you entertain it, just for a second. But that second turns into minutes. And those minutes turn into a pattern. That is how overthinking begins to take hold. And overthinking is one of the most effective ways peace is stolen. Because it keeps your mind moving without ever arriving at clarity. It creates motion without direction. It makes you feel like you are solving something, when in reality you are just circling the same uncertainty over and over again. And the more you engage with it, the more it drains your energy. You begin to feel tired without doing anything physical. You begin to feel overwhelmed without anything actually happening. and slowly, your peace is replaced with mental noise. But it doesn't stop there. Another way your peace is quietly taken from you is through the voices you allow into your space. Not just external voices, but internalized ones. Opinions, judgments, expectations that were never yours to carry, yet somehow they found a place in your mind. And now, without realizing it, you are measuring yourself against standards that do not align with who you truly are. You start questioning your decisions. You start doubting your instincts. You start hesitating in moments where you should feel confident. And that hesitation, that second guessing, slowly disconnects you from your own clarity. Because peace requires trust. And the moment you stop trusting yourself, your peace begins to weaken. Then there are distractions. Not the obvious kind, but the constant, low-level distractions that keep your attention fragmented. The need to check something, to scroll, to stay busy even when there is nothing urgent. It feels productive, it feels normal, but it is quietly pulling you away from stillness. And stillness is where peace is strengthened. So when you are constantly distracted, you never fully return to that state. You remain slightly unsettled, slightly disconnected, never fully grounded. And over time, that becomes your new normal. But it was never meant to be. There is also something else you may not have noticed: emotional triggers. Moments, words, or situations that instantly shift your state without warning. You could be calm 1 minute, and suddenly something small pulls you into irritation, frustration, or doubt. And the intensity of that reaction feels bigger than the situation itself. That is not random. That is something being used to pull you out of alignment. Because when you react emotionally without awareness, you temporarily lose control of your inner state. And in that moment, your peace is no longer guiding you, your reaction is. And reaction is unpredictable. It leads you away from clarity. It pulls you into unnecessary conflict. It drains your energy in ways that take time to recover from. And once again, your peace is quietly taken not in a single moment, but through repeated patterns that slowly wear you down. This is how subtle it is. Nothing dramatic. Nothing extreme. Just small shifts, repeated consistently, until your inner world no longer feels stable. And because each piece seems insignificant on its own, you don't immediately recognize the pattern. You adapt to it. You adjust to it. You begin to live within it. But now you are seeing it. Now you are recognizing how these small, unnoticed habits and influences have been working together to pull you away from where you are meant to stand. And that awareness is powerful because it allows you to interrupt the pattern. You do not need to fight everything at once. You simply need to notice. Notice when your thoughts begin to spiral. Notice when a voice enters your mind that does not align with your truth. Notice when distraction replaces stillness. Notice when a reaction tries to override your awareness. Because the moment you notice, you create space. And in that space, your peace has room to return. This is where control begins to come back to you. Not by forcing anything, not by resisting everything, but by becoming aware of what is happening within you in real time. Because once you see the pattern, you are no longer trapped inside it. And that is when everything starts to change. Type "I take back my peace" in the comments if you are ready to break these patterns. Blessing code 303 is now restoring balance and awareness within your spirit. At this stage, something inside you is beginning to sharpen. You are no longer just feeling the disturbance, you are starting to recognize it. But now comes one of the most critical parts of this entire journey, because this is where most people lose their footing without even realizing it. You must learn to distinguish between the voice of fear and the voice of truth. Because both of them speak and they often sound very similar. This is where the battle becomes more refined, more precise, more personal. It is no longer just about distractions or emotional shifts. It moves deeper into your perception. It begins to influence how you interpret situations, how you see yourself, how you anticipate what is coming next. And if you do not recognize the difference between these two voices, you will begin to follow the wrong one without even realizing it. The voice of fear is subtle. It does not always shout. It does not always feel intense. Sometimes it comes in calmly, almost logically, presenting itself as caution, as preparation, as awareness. It says things like, "What if this goes wrong?" Or "You should be careful. Something feels off." And at first, it feels like you are being responsible, like you are thinking things through. But then it continues. It builds scenarios that have not happened. It replays situations that are already over. It focuses on outcomes that are uncertain and presents them as if they are inevitable. And slowly, it begins to create a sense of unease within you. Not clarity and ease. Because the voice of fear does not guide you forward. It traps you in possibilities that drain your energy and distort your perception. It pulls you away from the present moment and anchors you in what might go wrong instead of what is actually real. And the more you listen to it, the louder it becomes. It starts influencing your decisions. It makes you hesitate when you should move. It makes you doubt when you should trust. And eventually, it convinces you that staying stuck is safer than moving forward. That is how it steals your peace. Now listen carefully, because the voice of truth operates very differently. The voice of truth is not chaotic. It is not overwhelming. It does not rush you, and it does not pressure you. It speaks with clarity, even when the situation itself is uncertain. It brings a sense of grounding, even when things around you are shifting. The voice of truth does not create panic. It creates perspective. It does not flood your mind with endless possibilities. It gives you direction. Even if that direction is simple, even if it is just one step, it is always steady. It does not need to prove itself through repetition or intensity. It simply is. And most importantly, it brings peace with it. Not temporary comfort, not avoidance, but a deeper sense of knowing that allows you to remain centered regardless of what is happening externally. This is the difference you must begin to feel, not just understand. Because the voice of fear will often try to disguise itself as truth. It will try to sound convincing, reasonable, even protective. But if you pay attention closely, you will notice that it always leaves you feeling unsettled, uncertain, or drained. The voice of truth, on the other hand, may not always tell you what you want to hear, but it will always leave you feeling grounded. And that is your indicator. Peace is the signature of truth. If what you are hearing inside your mind is creating confusion, tension, or restlessness, then it is not guiding you, it is pulling you away. But if what you are sensing brings clarity, steadiness, and a sense of alignment, even if it challenges you, then you are moving in the direction of truth. This is why awareness is so important right now. Because you are standing at a point where you can begin to choose which voice you follow. And that choice changes everything. You do not need to silence every thought. You do not need to fight every feeling. You simply need to observe and discern. You need to pause long enough to ask yourself, is this leading me into peace or pulling me into fear? That question alone creates separation. It allows you to step back instead of being pulled in. It allows you to regain control instead of reacting automatically. And in that space, your clarity begins to return. Because once you stop feeding the voice of fear, it begins to lose its influence. And once you start aligning with truth, your peace begins to strengthen. This is the shift that restores your power. Not by eliminating challenges, not by controlling everything around you, but by choosing what you allow to guide you internally. Because your direction is not determined by what happens outside of you, it is determined by which voice you follow within you. And now, you are beginning to hear the difference. Now, you are beginning to recognize what has been pulling you away and what is trying to bring you back. And from this moment forward, you no longer have to be confused. You can choose clarity. You can choose truth. You can choose peace. Type "I follow truth" in the comments if you are ready to walk in clarity. Blessing code 505 is now strengthening your discernment and inner guidance. There was a moment and you know exactly what it is. You may not talk about it. You may not even fully revisit it in your mind. But deep down, you remember the shift. You remember the point where something inside you started to feel different. Where your peace didn't just feel disturbed, it felt distant. Where your thoughts became heavier, your emotions more unpredictable, your energy harder to maintain. And what made it even more confusing was this: from the outside, everything may have looked normal. People around you didn't see it. They didn't feel what you were carrying. They didn't understand the weight that had quietly settled into your inner world. So you kept going. You kept showing up. You kept functioning. But inside, something wasn't right. It was the moment you almost lost yourself. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way that anyone could easily point out. But in a slow, subtle way. The kind that happens over time, where you don't even realize how far you've drifted until you stop and look back. You started second-guessing yourself more than usual. Decisions that once felt simple became complicated. Things you used to trust within yourself suddenly felt uncertain. You questioned your instincts. You hesitated where you used to move forward with confidence. And that hesitation began to affect how you showed up in your life. Then came the emotional weight. Feelings that didn't fully make sense. Moments of frustration that seemed disproportionate. Periods of low energy that you couldn't explain. And instead of clarity, you found yourself trying to manage your state just to get through the day. That is how it happens. Not all at once, but gradually. And during that time, something else was happening that you may not have noticed right away. You were adapting. You were adjusting to the discomfort instead of aggressing it. You were learning how to function inside a state that was never meant to be permanent. You told yourself, this is just a phase. You told yourself, it will pass. You told yourself, I just need to push through. But pushing through without understanding what you were dealing with only kept you in that state longer. And here is what is important for you to realize now. You did not lose yourself. You were pulled away from your center. There is a difference. Because losing yourself implies that something is gone. But what happened to you was not loss, it was disconnection. A temporary shift away from your natural state of clarity, confidence, and peace. And that disconnection came from everything you have now begun to understand. The subtle thoughts, the constant pressure, the emotional triggers, a voice of fear, all of it working together to slowly move you out of alignment. But even in that moment you were still there. Even when you felt uncertain, your awareness was still present. Even when you felt overwhelmed, something inside you knew this wasn't right. Even when you felt disconnected, a part of you was still observing, still questioning, still searching. That part of you is the reason you are here now. Because no matter how far things seemed to drift, you never fully let go of yourself. You never completely accepted that state as your truth. You felt it. You experienced it, but something within you resisted it. And that resistance is your strength. It is the reason you are able to recognize what is happening now. It is the reason you are able to reconnect with your clarity. It is the reason your peace can be restored. Because you are not starting from nothing. You are returning to something that was always within you. And now, when you look back at that moment, you can begin to see it differently. Not as a failure, not as a weakness, but as a point of awareness. A moment that showed you how easily your peace can be disrupted when you are not fully grounded, but also how resilient you are when you begin to reconnect. This is where your perspective shifts. Because instead of feeling like you lost something, you begin to understand that you experienced something. You move through a state that taught you what to recognize, what to protect, and what to never ignore again. And that changes how you move forward. You become more aware of your internal state. You become more intentional with your thoughts. You become more protective of your peace. Not out of fear, but out of understanding. Because now you know what it feels like to drift away from yourself. And more importantly, you know what it takes to come back. And that is what you are doing right now. You are coming back to yourself. Not slowly, not uncertainly, but with awareness, with clarity, and with a deeper understanding than you had before. This is not the end of your struggle. This is the turning point of your awareness. Type "I return to myself" in the comments if you feel this reconnection happening within you. Blessing code 606 is now restoring your inner balance and identity. At this point, something inside you is no longer questioning what is happening. You are beginning to understand it. And with that understanding comes a realization that may feel heavy at first, but it is necessary for you to fully step into your awareness. This is not random. What you have been experiencing, the pressure on your peace, the internal shifts, the moments of confusion and clarity, all of it is connected to something deeper about you. Because not everyone feels things the way you do. Not everyone notices these shifts. Not everyone becomes aware of what is happening beneath the surface. What you did. And that is where the truth begins to unfold. You were chosen for this level of awareness. Not because you asked for it. Not because it is easy. But because there is something within you that is capable of seeing beyond what is obvious. You have a sensitivity to your internal state, to your environment, to the subtle movements that most people overlook. And that sensitivity is not a weakness, it is a form of perception. But perception comes with responsibility. Because when you can see more, you must also understand more. When you can feel more, you must learn how to stay grounded within those feelings. And when you begin to recognize patterns that others ignore, you are no longer able to live unconsciously the way they do. This is why the battle feels personal. Because it is connected to your level of awareness. Think about it, there are people who go through life completely unaware of what is happening within them. They react, they move, they make decisions, but they never stop to question why they feel the way they feel. They accept the noise as normal. They accept the chaos as part of life. But you couldn't. Something within you kept questioning. Something within you kept observing. Something within you refused to settle into confusion. And that is exactly why you are here right now. Because awareness disrupts patterns. And when patterns begin to break, there is always resistance. This is why the pressure increased the moment you started paying attention. This is why the thoughts became louder when you tried to quiet your mind. This is why the distractions became stronger when you tried to focus. Because something recognized that you were no longer operating unconsciously, and that made you a threat to everything that depends on you staying unaware. But here is where your perspective must shift. You are not being targeted because you are weak. You are being challenged because you are becoming aware. And awareness changes everything. Once you see clearly, you cannot go back to confusion. Once you recognize the pattern, you cannot pretend it isn't there. Once you understand the source, you cannot keep reacting the same way. That is why this moment matters so much. Because this is not just about protecting your peace anymore. This is about stepping into a different way of living. A way where you are no longer controlled by every thought, every emotion, every external influence that tries to pull you out of alignment. You are learning to stand in your awareness, to stand in your clarity, to stand in your ability to observe without being consumed. And that is what makes you different. Not better than anyone else, but more aware. And with that awareness comes a choice. You can either retreat back into old patterns, back into unconscious reactions, back into a state where everything feels overwhelming because you are not fully present, or you can move forward with what you now understand. You can begin to live with intention. You can begin to protect your inner state with awareness instead of reacting to everything that tries to influence it. You can begin to move through situations with clarity instead of being pulled in every direction by what you feel in the moment. This is what it means to be chosen for this kind of battle. Not that you were selected to suffer, but that you were capable of seeing what others do not see, and therefore capable of rising above what others remain stuck in. And that changes how you move from this point forward. Because now, when something tries to disturb your peace, you recognize it. Now, when a thought enters your mind that does not align, you question it. Now, when a situation begins to pull you into reaction, you pause. That pause is your power. It is the moment where you decide whether you are going to fall back into the pattern or rise above it. And the more you choose awareness, the stronger that power becomes. This is not something that happens overnight. This is something you develop, step by step, moment by moment, joys by joys. But the most important part is this: you are no longer unaware. You are no longer moving blindly. You are no longer reacting without understanding. You are seeing clearly. And once you reach that point, everything begins to change. Because now, you are not just experiencing life, you are navigating it with awareness. And that is what separates you from the version of yourself that almost lost their way. You have returned and now you are rising. Type "I am aware" in the comments if you are stepping into this understanding. Blessing code 777 is now strengthening your awareness and inner authority. This is the moment where everything begins to shift. Not gradually, not accidentally, but intentionally. Because up until now, you have been observing, understanding, recognizing the patterns, identifying the voices, and becoming aware of what has been happening within you. But awareness alone is not the final step. Awareness is the doorway. What you do next, that is the turning point. Because there comes a moment where you stop analyzing what is happening and you start deciding what you will allow. This is that moment. You are no longer in a position where your peace is being taken without your knowledge. You are no longer drifting through thoughts and emotions without understanding their source. You are standing at a point where you can actively reclaim what was slowly being pulled away from you. And reclaiming your peace does not mean fighting everything around you. It means returning to control within you. It means recognizing that not every thought deserves your attention. Not every feeling deserves your reaction. Not every situation deserves your energy. And once you begin to understand that, something powerful happens. You stop giving away pieces of yourself so easily. Because that is what was happening before. Your attention was being pulled in different directions. Your energy was being consumed by things that did not serve you. Your focus was being fragmented by noise that did not belong to you. And without realizing it, your peace was being divided. But now you are taking it back. And it starts with something simple, yet incredibly powerful. You begin to pause. Before reacting, before overthinking, before allowing a thought to spiral, you pause. And in that pause you create space. Space between what is happening and how you respond to it. Space between the trigger and your reaction. Space between the noise and your awareness. That space is where your power lies. Because within that space, you are no longer being controlled. You are choosing. You are choosing what to engage with. You are choosing what to release. You are choosing what deserves your energy and what does not. And this is where your peace begins to stabilize again. Not because everything around you has changed, but because you have. You are no longer feeding every thought that enters your mind. You are no longer chasing every distraction that pulls your attention. You are no longer reacting to every emotional shift as if it defines you. You are observing and then deciding. And the more you practice this, the stronger it becomes. At first, it might feel unfamiliar. You may notice how often your mind tries to pull you back into old patterns. You may feel the urge to react, to overanalyze, to engage with thoughts that you now recognize as unnecessary. But this is where your awareness guides you. Because now, you can see it happening in real time. You can catch the thought before it extends. You can feel the emotion before it takes over. You can recognize the distraction before it consumes your focus. And in that recognition, you regain control. This is not about perfection. This is about presence. Because the more present you are, the less influence these patterns have over you. The more grounded you become, the less you are pulled in every direction. And the more you choose what aligns with your peace, the more stable your inner world becomes. This is how you reclaim it. Not by force, not by resistance, but by awareness followed by intentional choice. And once you begin to operate this way, something remarkable happens. The same things that used to disturb you begin to lose their impact. The same thoughts that used to pull you in begin to fade. The same situations that used to trigger you begin to feel manageable. Not because they have disappeared, but because you are no longer giving them control over your state. This is the turning point. The moment where you stop being affected by everything around you and start being grounded within yourself. And from this place your peace is no longer something fragile. It becomes something stable. Something you carry with you, regardless of what is happening externally. Something that is not easily shaken, not easily disrupted, not easily taken. Because now it belongs to you again. And the more you stand in that, the less anything else can take it from you. Type "I reclaim my peace" in the comments if you are stepping into this power. Lesson code 888 is now activating your inner control and stability. As you reclaim your peace in this moment, understand this: your awakening is not just for you. There are countless others still trapped in confusion, still searching for clarity, still waiting for a message that will help them break free from the noise. And right now, you have the power to help that message reach them. When you sow through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are releasing a seed that becomes light in someone else's darkness, clarity in someone else's chaos, peace in someone else's storm. The word speaks: "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days," and this is that moment of obedience calling you forward. Say it within yourself: "I will be part of this mission. I will help carry this truth." Do not wait. Do not hold back, because your action today becomes someone else's breakthrough tomorrow. Step forward now and let your giving speak where words cannot. Now that you have reached this turning point, now that you are beginning to reclaim your peace with awareness and intention, there is something deeper you must understand if you want to sustain it. Because reclaiming your peace is one thing, maintaining it is another. And the key to maintaining it lies in something most people overlook: stillness. Not silence as in the absence of sound, but stillness as in the absence of internal chaos. A state where your mind is no longer racing, your emotions are no longer pulling you in different directions, and your awareness is fully present in the moment without being consumed by it. This is where your true authority begins, because when you are still, you are not reacting. You are not being pulled. You are not being influenced by every thought or emotion that passes through you. You are grounded. You are centered. You are in control of your internal state. And that kind of stability is powerful. But here is what you need to understand: stillness does not happen automatically. It is a practice, because everything around you is designed to keep you moving mentally and emotionally. The noise, the distractions, the constant flow of information, the expectations, the pressures, all of it pulls your attention outward. It keeps your mind active, your thoughts engaged, your emotions reactive. And in that constant movement, stillness becomes rare. But without stillness, peace cannot fully stabilize. Because if your mind is always occupied, if your attention is always divided, if your emotions are constantly reacting, then your inner state never fully settles. It remains slightly unsettled, slightly unstable, always influenced by something external. That is why stillness is necessary, because stillness allows everything to reset. It allows your thoughts to slow down. It allows your emotions to settle. It allows your awareness to come back to the present moment. And in that space, clarity returns. This is where you begin to experience what can only be described as authority over your inner world. Because instead of being carried by every thought, you begin to observe them without attachment. Instead of being overwhelmed by every emotion, you begin to feel them without losing your center. Instead of reacting to every situation, you begin to respond with intention. This is not something that comes from force. It comes from presence, from choosing, again and again, to return to yourself instead of being pulled outward by everything happening around you. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. At first, you may notice how difficult it is to remain still. Your mind may try to wander. Thoughts may continue to appear. Emotions may try to pull your attention. But this is not failure, this is awareness. Because for the first time, you are seeing how active your inner world has been. And instead of being lost in it, you are now observing it. That observation is what creates separation. And in that separation you gain control. Because once you are no longer identified with every thought or emotion, they lose their ability to control you. They become something you experience, not something that defines you. This is where your spiritual authority begins to take shape. Not as something external, not as something given to you by others, but as something you cultivate within yourself. The ability to remain steady regardless of what is happening. The ability to stay grounded even when there is pressure. The ability to maintain your peace even when everything around you is trying to disrupt it. And this is what changes how you move through life. Because now, you are not reacting to everything. You are choosing your responses. You are no longer being controlled by your environment. You are navigating it with awareness. And that awareness, combined with stillness, creates a level of stability that cannot be easily shaken. This is what makes your peace sustainable. Not because challenges disappear, not because life becomes perfect, but because your foundation becomes stronger. Because you are no longer depending on external conditions to maintain your inner state. You are generating it from within. And once you reach that point, everything changes. Because now, no matter what happens around you, you have a place to return to. A state of stillness that allows you to reset, to realign, to regain clarity without being overwhelmed. This is your anchor, and the more you return to it, the stronger it becomes, until eventually it becomes your natural state. A place where your peace is not something you have to chase, but something you carry with you at all times. Type "I stand in stillness" in the comments if you are stepping into this authority. Blessing code 909 is now strengthening your inner stability and control. There is one final pattern you must fully understand if you are going to protect your peace at a deeper level, because this is where even the most aware people can still lose their ground if they are not careful. It is the trap of emotional reaction. Not emotion itself, because emotion is natural. It is part of your human experience. It is something you are meant to feel. But reaction is what happens when emotion takes control before awareness has a chance to guide you. And this is where your peace can be lost in an instant. You can be grounded, centered, where and then something happens. A word, a message, a tone, a situation that hits something inside you. And in that moment, there is a shift. Your body responds. Your thoughts accelerate. Your emotions rise. And before you even realize what is happening, you are reacting. You speak too quickly. You think too intensely. You engage too deeply. And just like that, your peace is gone. Not because the situation was too powerful, but because the reaction was immediate. This is how subtle it is. Because reaction feels justified in the moment. It feels necessary. It feels like the right thing to do. You tell yourself, "I have to respond," or "I can't just ignore this," or "this needs to be addressed right now." But what you don't realize is this: the reaction is exactly what the situation is pulling from you. Because when you react without awareness, you are no longer in control of your state. You are being led by the intensity of the moment. And intensity is never a stable place to make decisions from. It clouds your clarity. It distorts your perception. It amplifies things that may not even be as significant as they seem. And once you are inside that reaction, it becomes very difficult to step back. You get pulled deeper. You start justifying your response. You replay the situation in your mind. You build more thoughts around it. And suddenly, something that could have passed quickly stays with you. It lingers. It affects your mood. It drains your energy. It shifts your entire internal state. This is the trap. Because the moment you react without awareness, you give your peace away. And what makes this even more important is this: not everything that triggers you deserves a response. This is where your awareness must become stronger than your impulse. Because there will always be moments that test you. There will always be situations that try to pull you into reaction. There will always be words, actions, or circumstances that attempt to disturb your balance. But your power lies in your pause. That moment between the trigger and the response, that is where everything changes. Because in that moment, you have a choice. You can react or you can remain aware. You can engage immediately or you can step back. You can allow the emotion to take over or you can observe it without being controlled by it. And that choice determines whether your peace remains intact or is temporarily lost. This is not about suppressing emotion. This is about allowing emotion to exist without letting it dictate your actions. Because when you feel something strongly, it does not mean you have to act on it immediately. It does not mean you have to respond right away. It does not mean the situation requires your instant energy. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. To pause. To breathe. To allow the intensity to pass before you decide what to do. And in that pause, your clarity returns. You begin to see the situation differently. You begin to recognize what actually matters and what does not. You begin to respond from a place of stability instead of reaction. And that is how you protect your peace. Not by avoiding situations, not by trying to control everything around you, but by controlling how you engage with what happens. Because the world will always present you with triggers, but not every trigger deserves your reaction. And the more you understand this, the more you begin to move differently. You become less reactive, less easily pulled into unnecessary situations, less affected by things that once would have disturbed you. And more importantly, you become stable. You begin to carry your peace with you, instead of losing it in moments of intensity. This is the discipline that strengthens everything you have learned so far. Because awareness without control can still lead to reaction. But awareness with intentional pause that creates mastery. And once you reach that level, your peace becomes something that is not easily shaken. Because now, it is not dependent on what happens around you. It is anchored in how you choose to respond. Type "I choose my response" in the comments if you are stepping into this control. Blessing Code 1010 is now strengthening your emotional discipline and clarity. At this point, after everything you have come to understand, there is something you need to hear clearly, because without this, you may still feel like you are facing all of this alone. You are not. Even in the moments where your peace felt distant, even in the moments where your mind felt overwhelmed, even in the moments where you question what was happening within you, there has always been something holding you steady beneath it all. You may not have recognized it at the time. You may have felt like you were drifting, like you were losing control, like you were trying to find your way back on your own. But if you look closely now, if you reflect on everything you have moved through, you will begin to see something different. You never completely collapsed. You never fully lost your awareness. You never completely gave into the chaos. You never lost the ability to question what was happening. And that is not by accident. Because there has always been a level of protection around you that kept you from going too far away from yourself. A boundary that you could not see, but that you could feel when things became too intense. A presence within you that continued to observe, even when everything else felt unstable. That is what has been guiding you back. Because protection does not always look like removing every challenge. It does not always appear as perfect conditions or a completely smooth path. Sometimes, protection is what keeps you aware in the middle of difficulty. It is what keeps you from becoming fully consumed by what you are experiencing. It is what brings you back again and again. And now that you are here, now that you are seeing things more clearly, you can begin to recognize that this protection has always been active. Think about the moments where things could have gone further than they did but didn't. Moments where you could have reacted more intensely but something held you back. Moments where you could have made decisions that would have taken you further away from yourself, but you paused, even if you didn't understand why. Moments where the pressure felt overwhelming, but you still found a way to regain some level of balance. That was not random. That was alignment pulling you back. Because no matter how strong the pressure became, there was always a part of you that remained intact. A part of you that could not be fully shaken, no matter what was happening around you. And that part of you is still here. It has always been here. And now, it is becoming stronger. Because the more aware you become, the more you reconnect with its stability within you. The more you begin to trust that you are not navigating this alone, even when it feels like everything is happening internally. This is where your confidence begins to rebuild. Not from external validation, not from perfect conditions, but from the understanding that you are supported in ways that are not always visible. That even when your peace is tested, there is something within you that continues to guide you back toward it. And that changes how you move forward. Because now, you are not operating from fear of losing your peace. You are operating from trust that you can return to it, No matter what happens, no matter what thoughts arise, no matter what emotions surface, no matter what situations present themselves, you know that you have the ability to come back to your center, and that knowledge removes a significant amount of pressure, because the fear of losing control is what often creates more instability. But when you understand that you are capable of regaining your balance, that fear begins to dissolve. You no longer feel like everything depends on being perfect all the time. You understand that even if something shifts, even if you feel momentarily pulled away, you can return. And that is where true stability comes from. Not from avoiding every disturbance, but from knowing that you are grounded enough to recover from it. And the more you operate from that understanding, the less anything external can shake you. Because now, your sense of stability is internal. It is not dependent on what is happening around you. It is not controlled by every situation or every thought. It is something you carry within you, something that remains steady even when things around you are not. This is the protection that has always been there. Not something outside of you, but something within you that has been guiding you back to yourself this entire time. And now that you recognize it, now that you trust it, now that you are consciously reconnecting with it, it becomes stronger, more reliable, more consistent, more present in your awareness, until eventually it becomes your foundation, a place you stand from, not something you search for. And from that place your peace is no longer fragile. It becomes something that is protected, supported, and sustained from within. Type "I am protected" in the comments if you feel this truth anchoring within you. Blessing code 1111 is now strengthening your inner protection and trust. This is it. This is not just another moment in this journey. This is the moment everything you have heard, everything you have felt, everything that has been stirring within you begins to solidify into a decision. Because understanding without action will only bring temporary clarity. But understanding followed by choice that creates transformation. And right now, you are being called to make that choice. Because something is still trying even now to pull you back into the same patterns. The same overthinking. The same emotional reactions. The same distractions, the same subtle disturbances that slowly take your peace without you even noticing. But now, it cannot operate the same way, because now you see it, and that changes everything. This is why this is a warning, not a warning to create fear, but a warning to create awareness with urgency. Because what you do from this point forward determines whether you step fully into your peace or slowly drift back into the same cycle you have just become aware of. You cannot go back to being unaware. You cannot unsee what you now understand. And that means you must move differently. There will be moments, very soon, where something tries to trigger you again. A thought will appear. A situation will arise. A distraction will try to pull your attention, and it will feel familiar. It will feel like the same pattern returning. But this time you will recognize it, and in that recognition you will have a choice. Will you engage or will you observe? Will you react or will you pause? Will you give your energy away or will you protect it? This is the activation. Because peace is not something you protect once, it is something you choose repeatedly. In small moments, in quiet decisions, in the way you respond to what happens around you. And these moments are coming, not to test you but to reveal you, to show you whether you are still operating from old patterns or whether you have stepped into a new level of awareness. Because the shift does not happen in theory. It happens in real situations, in real time, in the exact moments where you used to lose your peace without realizing it. But now you will see it happening. You will feel the thought before it expands. You will notice the emotion before it takes over. You will recognize the distraction before it consumes your focus. And in that moment you will remember. You will remember that your peace is yours to protect. You will remember that not everything deserves your reaction. You will remember that your stillness is your strength, and that memory will change your response. This is where you step into alignment, not by forcing anything, not by trying to control everything, but by standing firm in what you now understand. By choosing, again and again, to remain grounded in your awareness instead of being pulled into automatic reactions. And the more you do this, the stronger it becomes. Until one day, what used to disturb you no longer has the same effect. What used to pull you in no longer feels as powerful. What used to drain you no longer has access to your energy in the same way. Because you have changed. You have become aware. You have become intentional. You have become grounded. And that is something that cannot be easily undone. But hear this clearly, this is not the end of the journey. This is the beginning of a new way of living. A way where your peace is not something you search for, but something you stand in. A way where your awareness guides your actions. A way where your inner stability becomes stronger than any external disturbance. This is your new standard. And from this moment forward you must guard it. Not with fear but with clarity. Not with resistance but with presence. Not with struggle but with awareness. Because now, you know exactly what is at stake. And you know exactly how to protect it. This is your activation. This is your shift. This is where you rise into a version of yourself that is no longer easily shaken, no longer easily distracted, no longer easily pulled away from your center. You are not the same anymore. And you will not move the same anymore. Type "I protect my peace" in the comments if you are stepping fully into this new level of awareness. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing your peace, clarity, and alignment. And now, as you stand in this activation, understand this truth: every moment you choose peace, you become a vessel through which light reaches others still lost in darkness. There are souls right now, just like you once were, trapped in confusion, searching for clarity, waiting for a message that will awaken them before they lose themselves completely. When you sow into this mission through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not giving to a platform, you are releasing a seed into God's work, a seed that becomes a river of truth flowing into lives that need it most. The Lord declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not just a verse. It is a living promise over your obedience in this very moment. Say it within your spirit now. I will not hold back. I will move when called. Do not delay, because this is your divine opportunity to act, to align, and to become part of something greater than yourself. Step forward now and let your seed speak into eternity.